Have you ever heard an album so powerful that it seems to evoke all the senses? Something so mysterious and euphoric that you surrender to its universe. For me, Xuvetyn by lovesliescrushing is one of just a handful of albums that I find myself re-listening to every few months. This is an album I've wanted to speak about since the channel began, back in 2021, but I think it deserves its own video just due to its sheer originality. While various descriptors have been ascribed to this album, like shoegaze, drone, and ethereal wave, I liken this album to a portal to a blissful dream world. This is an album that was recorded on a 4-track with nothing but guitar and vocals, which is impressive considering that there are moments that sound like an entire orchestra. But before we get into the music itself, let's get into the history behind the album.
Over the nights and through the fires, we went surging down the wire.
The year is 1991 in East Lansing, Michigan, and Scott Cortez and Melissa Arpin Dwimstra formed lovesliescrushing after attending college. Scott's influences include Brian Eno, Cocteau Twins, Dead Can Dance, The Jesus and Mary Chain, Swans, Philip Glass, David Sylvian, and Talk Talk, just to name a few. Now, Scott was kind enough to tell me about music magazines and how they influenced his sound. What he would do is he would read about bands that he found compelling. He wouldn't even hear what these bands sounded like, but he would take inspiration from the magazine descriptions of these groups. He would read something like vaporous veils of guitar, and this provided a framework for the music he wanted to create. His music would bear closer resemblance to these descriptions than the groups these magazines were actually discussing. In an interview with Somewhere Cold, he's quoted as saying, "Most music is about a song. Others concentrate on the texture of the song. Anyone who looks at music as sound first and foremost is an influence on me. I do like songs though. A person singing by themselves is lovely to me. Discovering harmonics was a huge influence." When you hear Scott's guitar work, it's evident that his approach to music is about the creation of soundscapes. As the primary vocalist, Melissa incorporated her poetry into the wash of sound. The duo would spend the next few years in the American Southwest, self-releasing their debut album, Bloweyelashwish. They would be signed to Project Records in 1993, an ambient record label based in Portland, Oregon. What's interesting is that many of the tracks in Xuvetyn were recorded before Bloweyelashwish. Remarkably, these recordings were created without a recording studio. It was the pre-DAW days, so the songs were bedroom recordings that were kept on a 4-track tape recorder. There are no synthesizers and keyboards on Xuvetyn, and mostly no percussion. Yep, you heard me right. The densely atmospheric sounds one can hear were recorded with nothing but guitar and vocals, typically after midnight in a living room. There are 2 exceptions to the lack of percussion. The first is in the Bloweyelashwish track Your Eyes Immaculate, where one can hear a drum machine as a loop. Also, in Virgin Blue Eyed from Xuvetyn, an Alesis HR16 with all the pads tuned to a melody and a xylophone sound can be heard. This was inspired by the oblique strategy from Eno to turn it upside down. That's why there are no guitars on that track. Scott told me that his approach to drums is that they either must be an integral part of the song or not included at all. Initially, lovesliescrushing's music did incorporate drums, but Scott would end up recording over them. This left behind traces of ghost drums in some of the tracks in Bloweyelashwish, and one can occasionally hear their pulse. It's such a testament to Scott's inventiveness that he was able to use these limitations to their advantage. One may assume that the lack of percussion restricts the ability of a track to unfold. However, with lovesliescrushing, removing percussion opens the door to new sonic possibilities that bend the fabric of time. There is occasionally rhythm in some tracks, but it is created through guitar rumblings or looping motifs. Xuvetyn would finally be released in January of 1996, nearly 5 years after their first recordings for the album. So it seems that everybody has their unique visualizations to describe the music on Xuvetyn. I've actually seen people call it a planet with 2 suns, creating a brighter than bright noon and a darker than dark midnight. As alluded to earlier, I think of this album as the sonic equivalent of entering a portal to another reality, with Scott Cortez being your ghostly tour guide. We begin our journey with Valerian, her voice honeyed, which creates the feeling like you're sinking into a euphoric dream world. It is so otherworldly, but it feels warm and welcoming. Melissa's angelic vocals enter, creating a certain sweetness to the music. As we gently float away from the first soundscape, we're beamed with Aquan 1. This interlude sounds like extraterrestrial beings trying to communicate with you from light years away. It's like you can hear their distant voices, but not well enough to discern what it is they're trying to say. We lose our connection to these beings, and we're met with Mandragora Louvareen. This is where the gentler sounds that we could hear in Valerian intensifies into heavier rumblings. Maybe those aliens we heard from earlier are now flying directly above us in their UFO. Again, there is no percussion on this song, but rhythm is created through the sheer, swirling density that hits. One of my favorite moments on this album is Xarella Almandyne. It has the euphoric qualities of Valerian, but it's far heavier. Melissa's vocal delivery is way more distorted and textured than it was previously, as Scott's guitars create haze and thunder. At this point, we're light years away from home, completely surrendered to the gorgeous sounds Scott and Melissa create. Milkysoft bolts past you like a comet, or maybe like a cosmic explosion, a billion times brighter than the sun. As Blooded and Blossom Blown begins, it's like you're landing on a new planet covered by ocean. Melissa's voice sounds like sirens that inhabit this terrain. It's kind of like they're inviting us to swim among the ocean depths with them. We stay there for a while as Virgin Blue-Eyed comes in. We're serenaded by a chorus of mermaids, while the xylophone sounds from the aforementioned Alesis HR-16 creates rhythm. Later on, we hear the instrumental Seesaw, which sounds like a playground on the moon. It's a fun little excursion we take before the tone begins to shift in Flowered Smother and Monar, becoming darker and more mysterious. It is then that Silver Fairy Threaded emerges. This 9-minute track is the longest on the album, taking its time to unfold like a twisted fairy tale. It's like slowly ascending a hill at midnight. A full moon beams upon us as a few fairies zoom by. As we climb to the top, Scott's guitar sounds are like mysterious glowing flora and fauna. We reach the summit around the 7-minute mark, like we're immersed into a colorful fantasy, enchanted with mythical creatures and magical plants. When Luma, Web-like, and Crescent begins, there's a sense of harmony among guitar tones that sort of unwraps and becomes dissonant. This creates a sense of tension or maybe even danger, like you're floating towards a dark and mystifying galaxy. The luminosity of this nebula encompasses the final few tracks of this album, all of which, except for the closer, contain this eerie, droning sound. By this point in the album, the sweet, embracing sounds of Blooded and Blossom Blown and Virgin Blue-Eyed are a distant memory. This galaxy is chilling, creating hauntingly melancholic drones. If I wouldn't have known that xuvetyn was a collection of bedroom recordings, I would have thought that Scott recruited an entire orchestra for Golden Handed. This track is shaped by what sounds like a looping horn section played by ghosts. Of course, this is not actually the case, with Scott playing a magic trick on her ears. Melissa's voice has also shifted in tone a bit at this point, sounding longing and bleak. This feeling persists in the two-part track Bones of Angels, consisting of part A, Bronze-Lit Feathers, and part B, Her Tongue Pulled Out. As we reach the climax, Melissa's wistful vocals are paired with these high-pitched, spine-tingling howls. It's like the track is mimicking the sound of death. This takes us to probably my favorite track on the album, the penultimate place where the ghosts dwell. Ghosts That Swirl is like you're caught somewhere between life and death while your spirit is floating outside your body. You're seeing every moment of your life at the same time, gently suspending above it all towards some sort of afterlife. By the end of the track, Scott's guitars howl with emotion and desperation, like we're not ready to leave this existence quite yet. The closer, Mother of Pearl, pulls you back from this scary place. It's like one final lullaby to ground us back into this reality. The guitars swirl and shimmer as Melissa's voice returns to the sweetness we've heard before. As the sounds slowly dissolve, we're left with what sounds like a music box. It's like waking up from a dream, returning from what felt like an odyssey. It's a gorgeously satisfying conclusion to this mystical interstellar journey. Welcome home. In my view, Xuvetyn by lovesliescrushing stands among a handful of timeless achievements in music. Understanding the context in which it was recorded makes it all the more extraordinary. The visions and feelings I use to describe this album are unique to me. We all have the opportunity to invite this album to appeal to our individual sensibilities. If you haven't listened to Xuvetyn, I hope that this video has convinced you to do so. And for those of you who have heard this album, please consider sharing the emotions and visions that accompanied it. Special thanks to Scott for offering his musical insights. Check out lovesliescrushing's latest EP, Psalms, on Bandcamp. I'll provide a link to its page in the description box. If you would like future album-related videos, please consider liking, subscribing, clicking the bell, all that great dreamy stuff. Consider supporting us on Patreon so that we can one day make these videos full-time. I'm Nate with Stained Glass Stories. Stay dreamy, everyone.